Well, the first thing I want to do is welcome you guys to Accounting and Sense. I have Amy Napolski here with Becker. And today I want to talk a little bit past what you guys normally hear in a classroom presentation. Now, I thought it would be fun to kind of work with you, Amy, and talk about things that you don't get a chance to really bring up in these kind of situations.
Yep.
So let's just start off with something interesting. What's a best advice tip that you can hand out? And then we'll go from there, look at different things that potentially a student could control.
Awesome. Well, just to give you a little bit of background, I celebrated 18 years with Becker this summer, so been around the block a little bit. I always say I started when I was 12. And over the years, I've had the pleasure and the great opportunity to meet with a lot of people and stay in contact with people. And every year, the AICPA awards the Elijah Watt Sells Awards, and those are for the top scorers on the exam. And what we do is our research and find out where they are, and if they're in our area and they took Becker, then we get to reach out to them. This was pre-pandemic, and got to take them out and celebrate. And I would pick their brains and say, okay, what should I tell candidates? And so I put together just kind of, I call it the factors you can control. The more things you can control, the more confident you're going to be. The two top things that really rose to the top is take the exam as soon as you can and get as much of it done as you can before you start working. I just met with a couple students and I said, did you hear that when you were on internship? And they said, oh yeah. Everybody looked at me and said, the number one thing is get this done before you start working.
So I have a student in the graduate program that just finished his last part and now has passed every section of his CPA exam, and he's heading into capstone. So he got it all done prior to getting to that last class. He said it was exhausting, but the greatest thing he ever did.
Awesome.
So that's exactly what you're recommending, is take it while you can and the material is fresh.
Absolutely. The farther you get away from studying, it's muscle memory. It's hard to do that. The other thing is there's no silver bullet. There's no secret sauce. You just got to put in the time to be prepared. You know, I mean, and I always tell candidates, shift your perspective from, it's this awful thing I have to do, to this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And maybe I'm going to come out of this with something I can apply right away on my job. So
absolutely.
Just shift that around.
I mean, that brings up so many good perspectives, because most our students they have families, they work, they're trying to finish a graduate degree to get to the 150 or extending their undergraduate to get to 150. So putting time to prep is just basically adding another homework assignment on each week.
Yep, exactly.
So if you have time to put in now, it saves you so much later. That's a great idea.
Exactly.
Huh.
Exactly.
So what's one of the most interesting questions you've received? You've been doing this a while. For a short amount of time, I did cover the state of Alaska, and a gentleman called me and said, can I take 2 parts on one day? And I, very quizzically said, yes, but why would you want to do that? And he said, well, the closest Prometric test center is an airline ticket away. And he said, that's a lot of money. So if you're feeling down and out, at least you don't have to buy an airline ticket to take the exam. Keep that in the back of your mind. Absolutely. Can you imagine how stressful that would be to have to get to an airport, jump on a plane, then sit for hours to take one?
And hope there's not a delay.
That's true. Okay, that's a lot. So when you go through your pointers, I'm sure sleep and things like that are on your list. What I thought was funny is I never thought about the snacks, because it is a long exam.
Yep.
So you
do 4 hours, over 4 hours, because you get there early and set up.
And have to be ready. I heard a story not that long ago, actually from last week, someone that just took the test, that they knew by reading, about the Prometric site, if there's things that they can bring and things that they can't. A new one came up I had never heard of before, and it was do not bring anything with a blueberry in it.
And
Wow.
I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think you and I have talked about, peanuts and things that are common. But in this case, the person that was hosting the test or proctoring it was severely allergic to blueberries. So they had to post everywhere
Oh, wow.
that if you have blueberries on your hand, even a slight residue, it could send her into shock. So it was kind of an interesting thing. So where do candidates go to figure out all this information?
That's a great question. On the NASBA website, if you just go in NASBA CPA exam, there is a candidate guide that they maintain that's really well put together. And there's lots of pictures, so it's easy to look at.
But how often is it updated? I mean,
Pretty regularly. In fact, I tell candidates don't download it. It was just updated the end of August, so less than a month ago. So, and especially with this new exam that launched in January of 24, that might be updated more. But that's a really good resource that just walks through the process, start to finish. There's things in there of, well, I get testing accommodations. How do I set that up? It's all explained in there. Well, I need to reschedule my exam. How do I do that? It's explained in there. So, really good resource.
that's awesome. So basically, don't download it. Just take a look at it online.
Yep.
9 times out of 10, it'll probably update again prior to you taking
Yep.
any part of the exam.
Yep.
The final question I have for you is from one of my students. And if you're from a different state, we talk about Minnesota a great deal in both the bachelor's completion and in the graduate course. But in all actuality, both those programs are online. And then even in the traditional campus, you're going to have students from all over
Yep.
coming in. So we do talk a great deal about Minnesota, but we do refer to the various state sites. What would you recommend? Taking the exam where you plan to live, or does it really matter?
I highly recommend look into, if you know you're going to work in another state, you're from that state, apply through that state. Now you can take the exam anywhere because it's the same exam nationwide, but I would highly recommend apply through that state. I just talked to a student that's from Illinois. She plans to apply through Illinois. She could take it here because her scores would be reported to Illinois. And one thing I can offer is I'm account manager. I cover Minnesota, North Dakota, and most of Wisconsin, and we kind of become experts in our states. I'm happy to put students in contact with other account managers who would be able to help with answering questions. So
if I'm going to school in Minnesota and I live in Ohio, then you would recommend somebody from Ohio for Becker for me to work with?
yes, I can put you in contact with that individual. Yes.
You just know everything.
Ooh, I wish.
But I think people get a little nervous when they're like, but you talk about Minnesota. So it's nice to know that with Becker, you could talk to Amy, for example, and find out what you need to know, but she's also willing to put you in touch with whoever from any state to help you get to where you need to be.
And if I don't know the answer or my colleague doesn't, we typically know where to point you in the right direction to get that answer. So,
well, Amy, I want to thank you so much. I know this is a quick podcast today, but is there anything that you want to add before we sign off?
just that you can do it. I mean, students, keep in mind, you can do this. Millions of people have done this. It is such a life changer. It is such an accomplishment, but it opens so many doors. So highly recommend. There's a lot of support here at St. Mary's. I'm happy to provide support. It is definitely something. I just talked to a student last week. Actually, I knew her as a student. She now works at a firm. And she was very scared of this, and it was tough to get through, but she said it's the best thing she ever did, and she's so glad she did it.
One last thing I want to add, and you just brought up a great point. If you're finance, if you are BI and you want to do something within the accounting world, if you want to be a CFO, this is something you should look into. It's not just pigeonholed for accountants.
Yep.
I mean, yes, you have to know accounting information, but a CPA behind your name can help you propel your career in any direction. Just do it.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I want to thank you again.
Well, thanks for having me in. This was a lot of fun.
And I will see you again at another Accounting and Sense podcast.